Vicki Joy Anderson, we are live. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, I kind of feel like where we are on the landscape now, I have to start introducing myself as a 100% human being, non-cyborg, non-AI driven, old-fashioned, come out of the womb human being. And of course, just because I said that, now there's going to be a certain percentage of people saying, well, she must really, why would she say that unless she wasn't, right? Oh my goodness. No, I'm up to my eyeballs for the last year plus, reading everything I can about AI and just looking at it through anthropological and biblical lenses and doing some research for some really cool stuff I want to release. So I'm up to my eyeballs with this stuff. And so I kid, but yeah, so Vicki Joy Anderson. And, you know, I've done the rounds, so a lot of people know who I am and whatnot, but I wrote the book, They Only Come Out at Night, Exposing the Dark Weapon of Sleep Paralysis. And so I have been enmeshed for the last probably 5 years, if you talk about all the research and the writing and the editing and all that, but just immersed in the exploration of the topic of sleep paralysis, night terrors, astral projection, all of this new age ascension doctrine. You know, this has been around since the beginning of time. You can go all the way back to documented biblical history in Genesis 6, where some angelic beings came down, interacted with mankind. So we've been interacting with these beings for as long as we know. And so because it looks very different these days, especially with the tech that's coming out, it's time for some new conversations about what does theosophy and ascension doctrine and the new golden age, what is all this stuff? What does it look like in our generation? And I specifically say that I am exploring and researching this topic because with the rate at which information and knowledge is increasing, something that I absolutely believe to be true or an answer to a question today, once it becomes informed with new information, can change on the daily. So I like to think that everybody in this kind of fringe space understands that none of us are experts. We are all just asking questions and exploring and sharing information, trying to figure out what we can to protect ourselves as individuals and as human beings.
Amazing. I think I've listened to enough of you on different podcasts to know the answer to this. But again, what got you into this space? The high strangeness. I wish there was a really good overarching term. You know, paranormal, supernatural, biblical prophecy, cryptids, all those things, right?
Yeah.
Paranormal, supernatural. We got to come up with something. I don't know what, but we got to.
We do. Because even the phrase sleep paralysis, I hate it. Whoever came up with it is a numbskull. Right. It doesn't work. It's not. You're not sleeping, and the whole thing. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I digress.
So high strangeness, maybe. So what I always say though is, what is your gateway drug?
Yep.
To this world. Yeah. What was it?
Oh gosh. So it's two-pronged, probably more than that, but the two main ones. I was basically dragged into it kicking and screaming because I started having sleep paralysis at such a young age. I probably can't pinpoint when it really began. But I've been having those types of experiences my entire life. And granted, I've managed to stave off the deadly stuff, you know, where you're waking up and you're seeing the red glowing eyes and all the crazy stuff. But it's still very much entangled into my circadian rhythm and my dream cycles and my dreams and all that stuff, still trying to figure out some of that stuff. So I was exposed to it. I have, 50 years of personal experience. And this isn't just something that happened to me once or twice. This is a ongoing ad nauseum basis. And, I guess the upshot to it, if you want to look at it as the glass is half full, the more they expose themselves to me, the more I can observe and figure things out and help other people who aren't as far along in the journey, who are looking for answers. So in your face. But the second reason I think why I am so open to this kind of stuff, because for those in your audience not familiar with me, I was raised in the standard, typical, evangelical Christian household going back to the 70s. So you can imagine how, narrow some of the perspective is on these things, and how frightened a lot of people in the church are of this stuff, and how much cognitive dissonance there is, and how much it's just not talked about or understood in the church. So how in the world did this Jesus crazy chick, how is she on here talking about all this crazy stuff? And I have to say that I think that I owe a lot of credit there to my dad. As far back as like the mid 1970s, there's no internet, there's no social media, there's not a bunch of whole fringe magazines, and you couldn't talk about this stuff really openly, or you were a nutcase. You certainly couldn't talk about it with your church friends. I, to this day, do not know where in the world my dad was getting his information, but all the way back in the 70s, he was extremely aware of Roswell, reverse engineering, Area 51, UFOs, JFK assassinations. He was very open-minded to this stuff. I have no idea where he was finding all of this arcane knowledge, because it's, occasionally you get like a little TV documentary, which was basically just, there to program you out of believing any of this. You're crazy if you believe this. So, I just grew up around it. It was completely normal to have these types of conversations and to ask questions. And, one thing, this is just popping into my head now, and I'll end on this note. My dad tells a story when he was quite a young kid, and he was in the church, and he went up to his pastor after the service. And I mean, he was pretty young, and there was something that just did not make sense to him about the traditional church answer, because well, if God can do everything and he's all powerful, and this Bible verse says this and that, he was just seeing a brick wall put up where there shouldn't be a brick wall. And so he went and he questioned the pastor, like, well, how can you say this if the Bible says that? And he was just genuine curiosity, out of the mouths of babes, just genuine curiosity for this contradiction that was appearing in his brain. And the pastor shut him down. He got in trouble. And my dad was just of the personality where, instead of being intimidated by that and shutting down and being quiet the rest of his life, which is kind of what we're told to do in the church, like shut up, that birthed in him a curiosity. If I'm not going to get the answers from you, I'm going to get them through other means. And he's just always had this ability and mindset that the church or the pulpit or the seminary isn't the be all end all final answer on all things biblical, because this stuff is beyond our little human understanding, and nobody has cornered the market on it. And so if you get a dead end or a brick wall somewhere, you keep asking questions, you keep exploring, you don't ever let anyone kill that explorative, questioning mind.
Yeah, for sure. I talk to a lot of people, as do you, and I always get squeamish when I talk to people that think they have it all figured out. And that's fine, but I think the folks that I gravitate to are the people that are just open-minded about all of it. That, of course, that could happen. Of course, there's nothing crazy enough for me not to be like, well, maybe, possibly, everything from flat earth to, what aliens actually are. Right. So, I know that your forward on your book is done by L.A. Marzulli. He also does he publish it as well?
He did.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I love his theories on what they are. And are you along the same lines on, from your experiences? Is that what we're dealing with?
Yeah.
A breeding program?
So I my wheelhouse really isn't the UFO stuff, because there's been so many people before me who have laid that foundation
Yeah, yeah.
and blazed that trail. And I have not ever had those experiences. All of my sleep
Gotcha.
paralysis, I've never seen the alien grays. There's different agendas. So I definitely think this is the way I always explain it to people, by way of the sleep paralysis stuff and the abduction stuff. Because I do believe that sleep paralysis is an abduction as well. And we can go into that if you want, but it's not the alien grays. So what I tell people is it's the same corporation, but it's a different department. So
Gotcha.
you've got this corporation, and there's all these different departments, and HR doesn't care about what IT does, and IT doesn't care about what finance does and accounts payable does. And so we're all under the same logo. We all punch the same time clock, but I don't know what the grays and the little green men are up to, because I'm over here behind my cubicle walls and nobody's got the pass key to get into my department. And so I'm the agenda for the sleep paralysis, the MO, who they look for to target. You know, there's a very specific MO for the people that have the alien abductions. It typically has to do with bloodlines, genetics,
Yeah, you're right.
all that kind of stuff. And with the sleep paralysis MO, they are also targeting a very specific type of person, but it doesn't have to do with the physical aspect. So when you talk in business and philosophical and religious circles about these 7 mountains of influence, like these are the 7 mountains that you have to climb and conquer in order to gain the control of the culture. If this realm wants the scepter of earth, and they want to dominate all of the 7 mountains of influence, so all the education and all of these different, you can call them mountains of influence. I prefer the phrase thought prisons, because I think we get trapped into those things, and that's where we can't get out of. But one of those mountains is more of a philosophical, spiritual, religious, emotional, mental. So if we are going to take planet Earth, we're going to shake it up, and we're going to give a whole new regime. We're going to change reality, and we're going to have a whole new change in infrastructure, and we're getting a new CEO, right? This is no longer going to be a Judeo-Christian focused planet. We are going to, let's go all the way down the route of singularity or transhumanism or whatever you want. They also have to bring our minds into an acceptance of a different type of reality. And they have to bring us into a new understanding of spirituality and religion. We have to have a different understanding of God and who that God is. And maybe that God is us. We hear a lot about that. And so
Yeah.
how do you groom a planet full of millions of people that for tens of thousands of years or however long have been taught that this is what reality looks like? How do we be brought into a new reality without, as for example, H.P. Lovecraft would have worded it in the opening of Call of Cthulhu? How do you red pill the crap out of a planet where for thousands and thousands and thousands of years it's been one way? How do you bring them into a total seismic paradigm shift of reality without them all going crazy or going mad from the new dark age that is swallowing them up? And so what they need, and this is going back to now, what's the MO? Who are these people that are having sleep paralysis their entire life and are getting pulled out of their bodies in the REM cycle and pulled into the astral? And maybe they have memory of what's going on up there, or maybe like the UFO abductees, they know something's going on, but they don't have the exact details. The MO is they're looking for spokesmen. They're looking for influencers, content creators. They're looking for articulate people with powers of persuasion, leadership abilities, communication abilities. And so they're looking for people. Now, some of these people that they're picking may also be chosen from particular bloodlines as well, on both sides. They might be looking both to educate their own ancestry, but perhaps also to harass and torment the bloodlines of their adversaries, right? But with that said, they are typically finding children. They start very young, 3 years old, 5 years old, and 7 to 8 years old are the 3 to 4 ages that I hear the most. When people contact me and say that this has happened my whole life, you're going to hear 3 years old, 5 years old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, the most. And for those of you that understand everything about MK Ultra, mind control, and trauma-based mind control, 3 years old and 8 years old are key ages of brain development where these things take effect. And so basically, in a nutshell, I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but so that someone who's listening where this is all new have a framework as to what I'm talking about. This lifelong sleep paralysis phenomenon is an astral version of MK Ultra. So you're not from a military family. You're not being dragged out of school and brought underground and having probes hooked up to you, and you're all this stuff. But this stuff is happening to you while you're in an altered state of consciousness at night. You're being pulled out of your body, and you're being brought into these areas of the astral realm, and you're being trained, you're being educated, you're being groomed. And a lot of times, the people that have experienced this have notable childhood trauma. They are usually empaths, very empathetic towards especially things in the world that are wounded, hurt people, animals. You've got creative types. These are people who are artists, musicians, poets, writers. They are people that are typically very articulate. They can communicate. They're persuasive. People like them. People listen to the message because these people will be groomed. A lot of times, what's specifically being taught to them is this is what reality really is. Get outside of the thought prison of your religion, and this is who really created you, and this is really your purpose. And once you come into an identity where I'm something special, I'm not just one of these bottom feeder human beings who gets born and has to work a job and just get married and have kids and take them to soccer practice. Like, you were before the beginning of time on another star system, and you've come here disguised as a human to help humanity get outside of the thought prison of religion and reality. And that's why you have so much anxiety and depression. This is how they explain away the trauma part of the trauma-based mind control. You learn to not only accept your trauma, but you embrace it because it was the price you paid for your knowledge. And you have a purpose in life. You are going to save mankind. You don't need Jesus. You can be the savior. I am the savior. Angelic beings of love and light have taught me. And so it's very wooing. It's very flattering. And when you're a child, if you're a product of trauma where you weren't seen as a child, where you were neglected, you were lonely, you were misunderstood, you were abused, and now something bigger and better and more special than a human being is coming to you because they've taken notice of you, and you're needed and you're special. There's just not too many people that are going to be able to theologically or intellectually talk themselves out of that gift, even if all of the red flags are there and they know it's probably a heist. They can't let go of the high that's coming from it, because if they let go of that, then they're just back to the traumatized, ugly, neglected child with no gifts or abilities who's never going to stand out. And now I just got to get a job and live a normal life. And it's really hard when you have believed most of your life that you are extraordinarily more special than the average person to kind of go back into that category of, well, maybe I am just an average. person. And I I won't leave everybody on that note. The two categories aren't super special star seed or a nobody, because the Bible also has answers for how high up in esteem we are in the creation. And there's plenty of verses, if you're looking for them, as to what the heavenly realms think of humanity. And there's plenty of verses that talk about how much Jesus loved us and how high in esteem he put us, and the sacrifices he made for us, and answering all of our prayers and singing over us, and setting it up that in his eternal kingdom we can be high priests in the heavenly courts. So it's this marketing and advertising battle between two kingdoms. One is saying you can be your own God for the rest of eternity, which may or may not be a promise that is kept. And then you've got the other kingdom saying you're not ever going to be God, but you're going to be in his presence, and you're going to be a part of his royal kingdom. And it's just a matter of which advertisement we're going to believe. We see these commercials on TV. Take this pill, lose 50 pounds, look hot as heck in 30 days. And we listen to those commercials, and there's a part of us that absolutely doesn't believe it. We think this is a bunch of bull crap, and who knows what the side effects are to this pill. And even if I do lose weight, if I lose weight that rapidly, what sort of bodily functions are being overridden and destroyed in my body to do something that unnatural? But then at the end of the day, what do? We order it because it's all worth it if we look good in those jeans. And
5-minute abs, baby.
Dude, I know, right? So unfortunately, these things have been around a long time, and they psychologically have us more figured out than we have ourselves figured out. And so they know that it doesn't even matter if in our heart of hearts we know that the line that they're feeding us is a bunch of garbage. They know our appetites enough to know that we are probably going to still take the bait. And a lot of people do still take the bait.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I saw you and Tony Merkel talking about the quantum computing and AI and all that.
Yeah.
And there's folks that think AI is manipulated by Nephilim and demons and whoever, which of course, why wouldn't it be? You ever watch, I mean to ask folks this, and I always forget, have you seen the show American Gods on Showtime?
Okay, I haven't, but several people have recommended this to me or told me snippets of it.
It's intense, and it's really eye-opening to folks. I think it should be. A lot of people are confused because it's confusing unless you know mythology and other Sumerian history and Norse mythology and all the things, like they all come out, right? Yeah. And it's the little g gods everywhere.
Yes,
everything from Ustra to Odin to it just keeps going and going and going.
Divine feminine. Yep.
It's amazing. But either way, where was I going with this? So one of those is also like it's like the TV. It's like modern media.
Yes.
Which to me, the internet would also include AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they put this forward as an American God, and I absolutely agree with that premise. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you guys did talk about it to an extent, but this seems like it would go hand in hand with like what you're like the sleep paralysis and or astral MK Ultra, just another department of that, but the same like ideas, right? Just like TikTok, just like everything else. So maybe get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I was biting my tongue through that whole live stream with Tony because there's so many things I could have said, but I'm working on a book and I don't want to give away all the
Okay, yeah.
gems,
No,
right?
that makes sense.
But what you just said gives me a perfect opportunity to explain this, because this isn't giving anything away. If you believe the biblical narrative, you have a God that was before all things. Nothing existed but him. Every single thing, including the angels and the fallen angels, and all things were created by him and for him and through him and to him. Like nothing existed prior to him. That's the biblical narrative. And I will just put a caveat in here. The Nephilim that everybody wants to talk about, if you want to be totally technical, and I hope you don't view this as a blasphemous comment, that wasn't part of the original creation. In 6 days, God didn't create Nephilim. He created the Watchers, who came down and played God, and through a genetics breeding program created these Nephilim. So you have to understand that when I talk about God creating everything, there are things that exist even to this day, probably underground and elsewhere, that God did not create during those 6 days of creation. There are things that have come about through nefarious technology.
Yeah, I look at it that he didn't create everything, but he created what everything is made from.
Exactly. That's all the enemy can do. And the thralls of the enemy, they can take all of the building blocks that were provided for them and they can create something out of it. So I can make a chocolate chip cookie, but I have to go and gather a whole bunch of ingredients that already exist. I can't just close my eyes like, bewitched and wrinkle my nose and a cookie appears in front of me, right? So ex nihilo is, the theological term for that. God created all these things out of nothing. And in fact, little just tidbit for people that like fun facts, if you go into the mysterious etymology of the word abracadabra, which they say we don't really 100% know what language this was or where it came from, but a lot of linguists understand that the basic gist of that phrase abracadabra means something similar to I create out of nothing, which makes sense. Abracadabra, and then something appears, right?
Right.
And so
pull the rabbit out of the hat.
exactly. So the occult has to have something. They have to have tools or tricks or smoke or mirrors or tech to recreate what the creator does without a wand or without.
They have to have the materials.
They have to have the materials. And so when you look at the things that make the God of the Bible unique to everything he created, you've got the classic theological terms. He's omnipotent, all powerful. He's omniscient, all knowing. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. Okay. The enemy can't be everywhere. That's why he needs tech. Now he is everywhere because Big Brother is watching. So through technology, the enemy, the devil, Satan, whoever you want to call him, the enemy now has a technologically afforded false version of omnipresence. Satellites, cameras.
Like a technical enhancement,
yes,
right? It's just an upgrade. That's it.
It's an upgrade.
But that's a great way of looking at it. I never really thought of it that way.
Well, yeah. So. And, all it would take, all God would have to do with his pinky finger one day is say, okay, this is ridiculous, and pull the plug, and all of the omnipresence is gone, right? All it takes is a reset, a flood.
Which is kind of the idea coming.
Well, exactly.
I mean, according to Revelation.
Right. Exactly. So let's look at some of these things. Technology has provided the enemy with a faux omnipresence. It's like Santa Claus. He knows when you're sleeping, he knows when you're like, he knows all this now, right? Okay. Omnipotence. All of our knowledge has been exchanged for information. Okay. The knowledge, what the Bible puts forth as wisdom. Okay, because the Bible doesn't tell us to pursue information or data or education. It warns us over and over and over and over again that the kind of brain power that will rescue your soul from deception is wisdom. And if you look at the false, technologically enhanced version of this knowledge, this omnipotence, it's not real truth. It's just data. It's memes, it's clips, it's sound bites, it's information, it's fun facts, it's
not actual wisdom or knowledge.
It's not wisdom or knowledge. It's just facts and data. And we are supposed to pursue wisdom, which is not being provided by the omnipotent structure of the enemy's system. But so he's created his own type of knowledge. And interestingly, this is kind of a buzzword. It can trigger people. I'm not making any sort of assertions as to whether it should be in the canon or not. But in the book of Enoch, what I think is so interesting, and this is the book of Enoch 1, by the way, 2 and 3 are Gnostic. When Azazel is judged and he's put in the abyss and the stones are all put up and he's not going to be let out until the time of in Revelation. Okay. Interestingly, the judgment doesn't say anything about you left your first estate, you mated with women, you had part in the creation of the Nephilim. And I'm not saying he was or wasn't involved in those things, but the reason he was judged, the reason he was put in the prison was that he shared the mysteries of heaven with mankind. In other words, he talked. And what's so fascinating is, where do you get that same formula? Cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. That's what you do when you promise someone you're not going to tell their secret. All the stuff we know about the secret societies and the Masonic world, about what happens to you if you tell the secrets, all of this leverage they have on the celebrities, where if you tell what's really going on, this and this and this is going to happen to you. Where do you think they got that from? It's their leader who's stuffed away underground right now. I still think he's fully operative and communicating his plans and agendas with the thralls on Earth, but he's locked up for this time, and he was locked up for telling secrets. But what's even more interesting is it says that not only did he share the mysteries of heaven, but he shared the worthless ones. Now, if you just take that word in English, that can get scary, because you're like, you're saying that knowledge from God or things in heaven, there's worthless things. I think it means value, value as to our need to know it. So he's sharing all of these things that basically the fruit of the knowledge was war, seduction, slavery.
Weapons, things like that.
Yes. So they were worthless because in the hands of human beings who they weren't originally given to, they just are used to destroy and manipulate and enslave us. So it's not worthless because God came up with it. It's worthless because they weren't made for human beings. And so when they're given to us, we just make shipwreck. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the omnipotence.
Right.
That's the omnipotence that is available to us now. Hey, we don't have to go up on top of a mountain now and meditate for 12 hours a day and reach nirvana and breathe in and breathe out and do all of our tantric moves and all this stuff. Now, all we have to do to connect with the tree of knowledge is turn on our phone or our laptop and start typing. We can directly connect with that stuff. And will that get even more literal as time goes by? What's in the black box? Is there some sort of sentience that's going to come through these chat boxes? The veil is only going to get thinner and thinner at this point. So that is the technology provides the enemy with the false sense of omnipresence and omnipotence. Omniscience. God is, omniscience is the knowledge. I think I've been saying that wrong. So omniscience is this all-knowing knowledge. So it's the omnipotence, okay? These are those words that unless you're 50 years old and were raised in the church and sing hymns, like, you're not going to, like, what is she talking about?
Same, right.
Omnipotent, God only wise, it was in one of the old hymns.
I said that word the other day and my 18-year-old looked at me and was like, what does that even mean? Like, what are you teaching? Well, anyway.
I know. All powerful. Okay. This is the weakness of the enemy. Okay. Lucifer, whoever,
Yeah, I want to talk about, I'm not going to go on with what you want, but I wanted to talk about the enemy whenever we're done.
Okay. All right. So Lucifer has an Achilles heel. And I'm going to do a Star Wars reference for all the young folks out there. This has always been the joke. Why in the world would you build a massive $1 billion state-of-the-art star system? Like what do you call the Death Star, right? Why would you build this state-of-the-art, Death Star and say, oh, but by the way, if you shoot this part of it, the whole thing will blow up? Like, why would you do that, right? But it's very telling because the enemy, the entire infrastructure of the enemy has a self-destruct button. And if we find it, his whole kingdom falls to pieces. And here is the Achilles heel of the enemy. And this ties into the false sense of omniscience that he's parading around, touting to have. The whole reason Lucifer fell to begin with, sermons after sermon after sermon has been preached on this, about his jealousy for Jesus, or he wanted to be number one, or he wanted to overthrow God. And I could go for hours about that. But here's the deal. What the Bible actually says when it's talking about that whole King of Tyre passage in Isaiah, what it actually says is that he fell because of pride in his own beauty. Looking in the mirror too much. Maybe we got a little bit of narcissism going on here.
Little narcissist ego going on there.
Maybe. So here's the thing. We have an enemy that has beguiled the entire world, is setting up this infrastructure that's making him look like the true God. But it's all a delusion in his own mind. So he is running around now because of all that he's accomplished, all that he has built, all this infrastructure, everything that he has done with the elites or the L-ites of the world and the royals, the royals, right? Everything that he is doing, he's got so much of this world on his puppet strings doing his bidding, and he's got all of this technology, and he's got all of these thralls that are building his infrastructure for him, thinking that they're doing it for the good of mankind, not having any idea that their gifts that were given to them by God for his glory are being hijacked and used to build an infrastructure that's going to destroy them. And that as soon as they are done with the little project they've been assigned with, they will be thrown into yesterday's crash because the enemy's not going to need him anymore. And he's going to be on to the next person to build the next part of the infrastructure. It's a delusion because he has no power. The power that he does have has been given to him. He's on a leash. We see evidences of this in Job. We see evidences of this with the Tower of Babel. You know what? This has gone too far. I'm going to go down there and make sure this all all Satan can do is he can run as far and fast as he wants and thinks that he can think that he's got all the freedom. But as soon as he runs nose first into that fence, that boundary that God's put up for him, he's going to realize, I'm still in a cage. I'm still bound. There's only so far I can go. But he has been led to believe that the whole world is under his control, because it even says in scripture, talk about flattering, the whole world is under the control of the evil one. And part of me thinks there's a dual reason why that verse is in scripture. First of all, is to tell us, hey, don't be deceived that your country was founded upon biblical principles, so it's safe and everybody is there to, just take care of you and protect you. It's telling us this is the real world. Until Jesus comes back and officially takes that scepter and decides to rule, the enemy has got the wheel right now. Now he's on a leash. Part of me wonders if that verse is there, not even so much for our benefit, but it is a device to keep the enemy blinded in his own pride. Even Jesus admitted through the inspired word of God that I rule this place. I'm in charge. And it keeps him under the spell, under the illusion of being omniscient. But hey, Satan, guess what? Just because you can fool a bunch of stupid, fallen human beings that have 1/1,000,000,000th of the information available to you, it's like taking candy from a baby.
Yeah.
The fact that the only thing that you have the power to deceive or control are people as limited and in the dark as human beings, that would be like me feeling like a god because I got a 3-year-old to say they thought I was the coolest person in the world,
Right.
So,
for sure.
So to just put a period on that part of the conversation, all of this technology, all of this AI, all of these things that they're packaging to us as this is for your convenience, your benefit, your entertainment, your joy. This is for your health. This is to prolong your life. All of this technology is to make your life more fulfilling and happy and relaxing. What it really is an infrastructure for the new golden age, where when that switch is flipped, we'll get just enough enjoyment out of that new golden age. We'll get just enough of an experience of the devil's golden age to be lulled into sleep mode. And then the switch gets flipped and we realize this entire infrastructure is just for his own, cue Pinky in the brain, take over the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's really, that's the thing. It's not that they aren't going to successfully usher in a golden age where cancer is cured and there's no more poverty. They will. The Bible tells us they will succeed. But then in a blink of an eye, everything that they have worked tens of thousands of years to build is going to be destroyed in an instant. In the light of his coming, the enemy will be destroyed and we will look upon him. And I love this verse. It says that when the world finally gets to gaze upon the slain body of this enemy that has held the whole world's sway, we're going to look at it and go, what? That's the guy. You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And this is the disadvantage to being in the position that we are as human beings. We don't understand what the real dollar bill looks like if the only dollar bill we've ever seen our entire life is the counterfeit.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, with the way eschatology works is the counterfeit comes to earth first before we have anything to compare it to, and the counterfeit is going to look real. it's going to look like the real thing to us. And so what it all boils down to is we know the counterfeit Jesus is coming first. And how are we going to protect ourselves when that happens? How are we going to differentiate the real thing from the not real thing when so many of us have never visually or physically seen the real thing? But even those of us in church who know the word and think we know everything, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, many of us have never seen the real thing either.
Yeah.
Because we're so distracted and we're all wrapped up in other things, and we really have to seek daily in every way possible, Jesus, show me your authentic self. And we have to understand that when we see the real Jesus, we might not like him.
No, and then that's what I was just going to say. I think people are going to be terrified.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because he's coming as a conqueror at this point. He's not
Amen.
coming as a lamb. He's coming as a lion.
Yep.
And he is going to be, I get chills when I think about it.
Me too.
He's the warrior king,
Yes.
period. And
yes. Do you see how perfectly they're grooming the next generations?
Yeah.
With no one is going to like the real Jesus.
No, because he's not the kinder, gentler guy. He's just
woke.
not.
He's not woke. He's going to be, you take everything that Rush Limbaugh, Alex Jones, or Trump have ever said, people don't like that personality.
Yeah.
You take everything about that, which they're using as the definitions of obnoxious, male types, and they're turning men into this sweet hippie Jesus that never existed.
Well, they even do it with the Bible to an extent, like they try to put forth, and if you actually read the word, he didn't mince words.
No.
He was not this kinder, gentler.
No.
That's God, actually.
That's
in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's God is the Father, right? He's our Father.
Yeah.
He acts like a father should. And he loves us and he coddles us and he gives us all, all the things.
Yeah.
Jesus is not that guy.
Yeah. He's the henchman.
Yeah. And if the people that portray him that way, I'm like, that's a great point that you make, is that they've turned him into, well, because they're going to put forth the Antichrist, right? Or the other, first, just like you said, and that's going to initially he's going to be that kinder, gentler folk, where he's going to portray himself that way, right?
Yep.
So anyway,
absolutely.
Great point.
And woke Jesus, hippie Jesus, he didn't even exist in the first century, because we are so culturally and contextually removed from the first century that we read things, and we tend to read the Bible where every time there's red letters, we hear Jesus saying this, and he's so sweet and he's so kind, and
like
we're
singing everything.
Yeah. Right? And we're so used to the movies where Jesus never talks above a whisper, and he's in an English language, in an English accent, and there's never any conflict. And if you culturally and contextually understood what he was saying in first century language, he was offensive. Why do you think so many people hated him? And so you don't understand.
Killed him.
Some of them, exactly. So, some of those passages, some of those stuff that he was saying, even some of the stuff that Paul said, it's hidden because we don't know Greek and we don't know the culture. But some of those things, like filthy rags, and what's really behind a lot of those words is graphic and ugly. He talked about, hey, Jewish people, why were you content to just get circumcised? You should just chop the whole thing off. Like, he says that. And then there are the dung, when he talks about the dung, Koine Greek was like the street language. It was a language of the people. It wasn't classical Greek. It wasn't the Greek, of Socrates and all that. It was the street talk. He came, if he came now, he would be talking in like Gen Z lingo. He came, and the Bible was written in this like common language of the people. When Paul talks about dung, it wasn't the Koine Greek word for like defecation. It was the Koine Greek word for if you and I said the shit word. He was angry.
Yeah.
And so we just read this ajaxed version of the Bible where everything is just funny and sweet and pure and like there's
and just
some
bleached.
aggression.
Everything's bleached, and everything, even the way that it's taught and the way that sermons for the most part are given, even hellfire and brimstone sermons are still sanitized because we're talking about there's I'm gonna put it like, because we're doing video, right? So I'm gonna intersperse this, or I'm gonna splice it in with a clip in between what we're talking about.
Very cool.
And it's literally like the movie, it's from like Clash of the Titans, when there's like that, you know, people talk about the Bible. Have you ever seen this like TikTok or whatever? It's just, this is what we're sold that the Bible is. And here's what it actually is. And it's giants fighting and war. And like, that's the Bible.
Yeah.
In all actuality, if you look, this is what I've been trying to push. And I wish I was more into, you know, I wish I had more. Either way, this could be the best. If somebody got a hold of it, a screenwriter and somebody with a ton of money and a director, they could make the best action movie ever. It makes Lord of the Rings look like trash. Makes any of it look like trash. And all they would be doing is literally telling the stories out of the Bible. It's an action, you know, an action movie in all actuality.
Absolutely, it is.
So with that being said, I think I had this conversation with Ed Mabry. The enemy. So we talk about the enemy, but we don't know the enemy's identity, actually. I mean, do we really? We have agents of the enemy, but we have folks like Azazel, we have other, what was the other? Who was the other? Samyaza, who are powerful beings on their own right. But we have the Satan. But Satan is a job title. It's not a name. So I always look at Satan as, and this is what I explain to my kids and friends, is if you've ever seen the Disney movie Hercules and you have Hades, right? Hades is Satan of the Greek pantheon. He is the Satan. Part of the divine council. He's like the guy who's the devil's advocate, right? Who says, wait. This sounds all fine and dandy, but what if? Like, that's the Satan's job, right? So we give this job title, you know, we turned it into a name, but like Lucifer, like, what is that? That's in no scripture. That's not, is it? I mean, it's not that I know of.
No.
So I wonder I think we're not given the name because it gives us power over the entity, right?
It allows
I'm just wondering if you have some insight on, if I'm on the right track. Is this correct?
Okay.
You know?
So this is one of those areas where we have to preface it. And it doesn't matter how many adjectives I use or how long I preface this. There's still going to be people after we've said, this is speculation. We're just having this conversation for fun. We don't know. We're just asking questions. We're just exploring it.
Right.
No matter how many times I tell you, I don't know, but here are some of the thoughts that I have mused around in my head, but don't put a gun to my head. I could be totally wrong. It doesn't matter how much of this I say. There's going to be people that come back. Oh, she's a witch. Did you hear what she said about Satan? Like they're
right. Yeah.
All I can do,
I get it too.
Exactly. It's all I can do is tell you that I, like every other Christian, have spent a lot of times thinking about this. I've come up with postulations and theories, and hey, I wonder if I'm on the same track there. Here's the problem we all have. We're all holding a diamond, and I can't remember what the the standard number of facets on a diamond is, if it's like 52, and there's some diamonds like a certain cut where there's a couple more.
Yeah.
But let's say we've got this diamond and there's, let's just say 50 facets on it, and God has all 50 of those facets, and he's got this 3 to 4D where he can spin it and he can see all facets at the same time, and he knows everything and how it all connects. And then you've got the angelic world that has that same diamond, but it's glued to their hand, so they can see 25 of those facets. So they're not God, they're not omnipotent, they don't have all the knowledge, but they've got 25 of the 50 facets. But if they turn their hand, they just see their hand and they can't see the dark side of the moon, right? Now you gave that same diamond to human beings, and we're like, whoop, and our nose is to the facet and we're looking at one facet.
Right.
And then we somehow think we know the 25 facets that the spirit realm knows, and that we somehow, because we went to church for a few years, know all 50. Like, it's ridiculous.
Right. We in all honesty know nothing.
We know nothing. We're all going to get to heaven. And you know why there's going to be 30 minutes of silence? I'm just joking here, everybody. There's going to be 30 minutes of silence, because we're all going to be so embarrassed for, we're going to be there in shame, like going, oh crap, I'm such an idiot.
I'm so stupid. Right.
It's going to be a Chris Farley moment. You remember that whole like, so
absolutely.
stupid.
Absolutely.
So I can't preface it enough. I'm not stating any of this as fact. This is with everything that I've read, and I went to Bible college, and the books that I've read. This is something I pieced together that, like, maybe, does this make sense? Okay. Like you said, Satan isn't a name, it's a job title. It's just Satan is the Hebrew word for adversary. Hasatan is the adversary. And I'll even tell you this, in the book of Job, when it says Satan presented himself before the throne of God and said, I've been roaming to and forth, and have you considered Job? All it says is the adversary presented himself.
Right.
So is that even Satan? Well, in the Hebrew sense, it is. But I'm going to botch this metaphor, this analogy, because I haven't seen either movie in a really long time. But if I'm remembering correctly, there's a scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where he's confronted with a guy with a knife, and it's just one guy, and he easily defeats him. I can't remember if that's the one where he shoots him or what it is, but
he's got the sword. The guy's got the sword, and he's like doing all the fancy work and everything,
right.
And he just pulls out his gun. And
right. Yeah. So then I think they up the ante in the second movie, where the one guy with the sword comes again, and he's like, no problem. And then all of a sudden, there's a whole army of these guys with swords. Right. So he's 1 on 50 now, right? And so it's this brilliant cinematic feature where you're in the mind of Indiana Jones thinking, I've been here before, I've got this schnockered, this is no problem. Yeah. And he goes for his gun, and then he's like,
oh wait,
what? That is the analogy I always get in my mind when people start talking about Satan, because we live in a world where we have been programmed to believe that everything is A or B, 1 or 2, black or white, blue or red, gay or straight, male or female. It's a dualistic world. It's a part of the thought prisons. It's a part of the mind control. Look at Moses. Moses was under that dual programming as well. I am standing in front of a sea, and we can either all drown, or we can wait until the Egyptians catch up with us and murder us. He didn't have a sea. None of them did. They're turning on Moses. What have you done to us? They didn't live in a world where their brain had been taught that there was more than 2 options. And so we have this idea, probably through the predictive programming of the Star Wars series, that there's a good side of the Force and a bad side of the Force. You get one color lightsaber, and that tells you what side you're on. And at the end of the movie, you're going to have one sword fight with one guy, and the good guy is going to prevail. And like, this is just this programming that Jesus and Satan are in a wrestling ring, and it's cage match until somebody taps out. And I believe, because if you're God and you have all of the power of the universe, do you look like God if you defeat one thing? Or do you look like God when you defeat a planet crawling with adversaries, right? And so, and I'm not saying that he is motivated by doing things to just look cool and power and extraordinary, but what I'm telling you is God has the power and the ability and the mind to fight more than one guy. And so when you look at Azazel and Samyaza, this is I'm going so far beyond left field that I'm out in the cosmos and you're never going to find me. Okay. This isn't peer reviewed. This isn't, dude. If you get triggered by this, it's your own fault.
It's not going to be me. I can tell you that.
It's your own fault.
Because I probably know exactly. I probably agree with what you're saying.
So there's debates among scholars. Some scholars think that Azazel and Samyaza are the same dude, and some say that they're different. I fall under the belief that I believe that they're two different guys. And the reason why is a lot of the stuff that I come up with, it's not even that I'm coming up with things because I went to Bible college. I'm simply, as someone who loves to read and write, I just look at the text. I look at the timing of things and whatnot. The way that the story is told, Samyaza collects 200 guys, says, here's the plan. They're a little nervous about it first, like, I don't know about this, man. But let's rewind a little bit. How did Samyaza even know at that point that manifesting into some sort of other form and living amongst the humans was even possible?
Right.
Did someone do it before him? Was one of their guys already down there? How did he know that plan would even work? So he gets everybody to come down, and then it explains all of the the breeding program and the women having the babies and the giants. And so it's not until several chapters in, and we know a lot of time has gone by because the Nephilim are now grown up. So
and you have just generation after generation after generation already. Yes.
After all of that has happened, Azazel's name comes up for the very first time. So where was he why wasn't he on the mountain? And if it says that Samyaza was the leader, then how come Azazel got the more stricter punishment? Why is he in the abyss? And I'll go into that in a second. So here's my theory. I believe that when what we call Lucifer, the second in command, the one who stood before the throne and was the musician, the king of Tyre, I believe that when he fell and was thrown to earth, that he was already down there, which is why he's not mentioned as being one of the guys on the mountain or being part of the original coup.
Just he was already
here.
Yeah.
And Samyaza was the leader, not of the whole world or the whole agenda, because I think Azazel was higher. He was the leader of the coup.
Yes, correct.
So now you have this, and I asked Gary Wayne this question once. So this is part of my puzzle piece. I asked him, if what we call Satan is Samyaza, and he's still on the earth, and he's still wreaking all this havoc, why didn't it? So let's say there's 200 watchers, and I can't remember offhand if the 200 included Samyaza or if it was 200 in addition to him. We have,
and that's not clear, but
okay.
Yeah.
So let's say assuming Azazel and Samyaza are two different guys, because we don't know, and assuming Samyaza wasn't included in the 200, we have somewhere between 200 and 202 angels that we know of that are now on Earth.
Maybe 203 because Lucifer, or the right hand is already down here.
Yes,
because I have my own theory too. But
yeah, I do think that Lucifer is Azazel, and he's Apollyon the Destroyer in the abyss, who's going to be let out. And I'm not just saying this because I read it or because I think it's cool. I actually have logic behind it. Does it mean it's true? No. The logic behind it is Azazel as stated earlier, was judged for sharing the secrets of heaven and the worthless ones. And then it goes on to explain specifically that he taught the forging of weapons and war. So we
Yes.
know that Azazel loved murder and bloodshed and war. What happens the second Apollyon gets out of the abyss?
War.
He makes war, because that's who
Tons
he
of it.
is. That's
All
who
of
he
it.
is. That's who he
The
is.
war.
Yes.
The ultimate war. Yes.
Murderer from the beginning. So that's kind of where I string those theories together. But anyway, I asked Gary Wayne, I'm like, if these 200 to 201 fallen angels are all judged, they are put into an abyss where the rocks are stacked up until the end times. How come Samyaza, or Satan, gets to roam the earth? Why? He should be in prison.
Right.
Who let this guy off, right? And he's doing all this damage. So what he said, and I hope I'm not butchering what he said Satan, Samyaza in this case, took a plea bargain. And what's funny is Satan looks like, okay, cool, this works for me, because however many thousands of years it takes for Jesus to decide to come back for the second time, I'm not in prison, I'm not in the abyss, I'm evading capture, and I've got all of this time to vicariously enjoy and revel in the sin and destruction of mankind. I get to get all of these people on the side of Azazel for my master, because I do think that Samyaza, I think Azazel is the master. He's the kingpin.
It might be the leader, but yeah, understand.
Yeah, I think Satan is actually a thrall. I don't think he's the one in charge. I think he's doing the bidding of Azazel, who's down in the control room.
Advocate, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And so to say. Yeah.
Exactly. So here's what I love about the plea bargain theory. It's not that God is not omniscient and didn't understand all of the destruction that would come out of that. It's not that he didn't have the power of reasoning to understand the destruction that would be wrought from leaving him up here to Rome. But what's fascinating to me is that in having an operative here on earth interacting with mankind, it also allows God, and how do I say this? Because what I'm about to say is not profound, but it's almost so profound I don't know how to put it into words.
Right.
It allows God to continually manifest his own glory in ways that he would not be able to manifest it if there wasn't a physical enemy present on earth. And I'll just give you one example, so that if people aren't tracking with me there, because this is, like I said, it's profound and it's not profound. Daniel gets thrown into a lion's den, and the lions don't eat him. And the next day, the most powerful occultic king to ever rule the earth, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, shouts down the lion den hole, Daniel, are you still alive? Did your God save you? That story wouldn't exist if there wasn't an enemy thinking he had cornered Daniel.
Exactly right.
So Satan does all these things, and he tries to get us cornered, and God manifests and rescues us in miracle. Not only does he rescue us personally on an individual level, but he loves to do it in a way, like with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel and Esther and all these stories in the Bible. He does it in a way where it's done in political and royal and government courts, where at the time that's where the scribes were. And so not only did the people just in that moment in time recognize that Jehovah was the one true God, but it was written down for all posterity's sake. And thousands of years later, we are still marveling and in awe and praising God for what he did thousands of years ago. And so that kind of ripple effect of God's power and glory being manifested and made known to humanity is the echoing of a battle, a sword fight he had with Satan in the moment where Satan thought he had him checkmated, and God was like, boom, and his glory is seen, people worship him, the scribes write it down, and there's a ripple effect for thousands and thousands of years where we're still acknowledging and praising God for the Red Sea crossing and the lion's den and the saving of the Jews in Persia, and et cetera, et cetera. And so Satan is actually a big, dumb thrall for
Yeah.
Jesus. He's being used over and over and over and over again in his lack of sovereignty and omniscience, because he can't stay one step ahead of God because he doesn't know the future, and because he doesn't have that knowledge, he continues to paint himself into corners where God is then allowed to broadcast to the entire world, I am the one true God. And so Satan is sort of, for all the destruction and heartache and despair he's bringing upon the world, he's also one of the most effective missionaries for the gospel, because his stupidity is constantly showing the glory of God.
Right. Yeah. There's Michael Cochini, you know that?
No.
Dr. Michael Cochini, he talks about a lot of this, and I'm going to butcher it, but I'm just going to kind of lay it out just to, and you piqued me with it when you talked about the plea bargain with Satan and God. Because if you look at the way a lot of this goes down even with demons and just the word in general, it's very court-like. There's like a court. It's a court of law up in heaven. And I've always, he uses the analogy, Michael Cochini does, that it's like we have literally the angel and the devil on our shoulder, right? The angel and the demon. But the demon just consistently takes our sin and goes and pleads to God or to Jesus and says, hey, look at what he did. Look at what he did. He broke this statute, so I can mess with him now, right?
Exactly.
And that kind of goes along with this whole idea of they're working within a framework of what they're given, and they stretch, they're like defense lawyers that go to court consistently and try and stretch what they can get away with, right? It's kind of like the whole Nephilim thing, and the ideas. I feel like the Nephilim were created by the watchers to try and circumvent the rules, because are they just human enough to inherit the earth? Things like that. So it's all meant to just stretch the laws to the breaking point. And I think that what happens is those stretchings snap back on them all the time. And that's God's miracles, and all those things are it's just the snapback of the legal precedents.
I love that. Yeah. This whole idea of the legal paperwork, the contracts.
Yeah.
This plays so much into my sleep paralysis research, and it plays into this whole CE5 movement, close encounters of the fifth kind. They're now talking about a close encounter of the fifth kind is now these aliens, these demons, these beings, these entities, whatever you want to call them. Historically, just like in the days of Genesis with the Watchers, historically, close encounters of the first through the fourth kind are the different ways that these entities are making themselves known. They are coming uninvited and trying to get their foot in the door, whether it is just a little bit of paranormal activity that you take notice of, all the way to them manifesting, to abducting you, to interacting with you. Now we have close encounters of the fifth kind, which is I can have an encounter with an angelic being in the spirit realm, dimension, astral, whatever. I can interact with an angel or a spirit guide or whatever they're going by. Like they keep changing the name of their job title too, but I'm not content to sit around and wait for one of these things to take notice of me. So I'm going to give it the proverbial vampiric invitation. Come on in.
Yeah, right.
You know, and whether that's through Eastern meditation or, you know, taking deep breaths down into your lungs with your eyes closed and candles burning, like whatever method it is. And it doesn't even take all that. It's look, they're waiting for the permission.
Absolutely.
They're waiting for the permission. You don't even have to verbally say, I wish that I could go to Area 51 and run into a green man. You don't even have to do that. Even if you just pursue some of these topics with the wrong motivation, if you're just sucking up content for hours and hours a day, getting your goosebumps and your titillation because you want to hear about all the people who have been raped by angels and aliens because it gets you off. Like, I'm sorry to be crude, but even just an unnatural or wrongly motivated curiosity in these things is sending the message to that realm. They're interested. We got them. They're hooked. That right there could be a CE5.
Like all the near-death experience stories and stuff. Like I don't know what to think of all that stuff. You know, it's hard to say because what could happen, and if they can do it with sleep paralysis, and you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So what could they show you? What could they show you that isn't real?
Anything they wanted,
but they'll make it real, right?
Anything they wanted.
And it's hard to say. It's just hard to say.
It is with so much of our brain unexplored, with 90% of it not being used, and the brain is just a conundrum. We don't understand all of it, and then you start getting into all of these altered states of consciousness and the pineal gland and all of these things that we don't truly understand. The way that our brain, our sense of reality can be hacked by these things. And that was even before there was a lot of tech. Now it's going to be even worse. But these invitations that we're giving, the contracts, like you said, and you know, what's vital to know, this is the missing link, and I know not everybody wants to hear this. And I know it seems very narrow-minded, and look, I'm not pushing Christianity or a denomination. I'm pushing Jesus Christ as the person he says he is, okay? Biblically, Jesus Christ said, I am of the Father. We are one. I manifested through the transfiguration into human form. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That doesn't have anything to do with American westernized evangelical Christianity, because that can be a thought prison too if you're not in the Word. The only way out of this courtroom scenario is to get the right defense attorney. And the only one who's getting you out of this stuff is Jesus. Because you said it so perfectly a few minutes ago. Satan takes our sin and he presents it before the throne room of heaven. And we see a little bit of what this looks like in the book of Job. And if we don't have a defense attorney and we're not called to court, it's because this isn't fair. We're not called to court to even advocate for ourselves. And so the case is presented and we're guilty.
Yeah. Yep.
And if there's only one person that's going to advocate for us and we've decided that he's not real or he's not who he said he is or he's a jerk because my dog died when I was a kid, and if you've decided that this guy's a joke or he's not who he says he is, you will not have a defense attorney for you on that day when the case is presented.
There's no public defender waiting for you.
No.
I mean, there is. You just have to believe it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. I could talk to you all day.
I know, man. This is
but
this
I can't.
Is good stuff. I know.
Unfortunately. So, I want you to shamelessly plug yourself now at this point.
Oh, awesome.
And tell us where we can find all your all your things and all your doohickeys and who's it's and all of it.
Sure. Oh man. The easiest place to find me is vickijoyanderson.com, because that's kind of the control room. That's going to link you and lead you everywhere. You can contact me on that site. There's email on there. If you go to the media tab, pretty much 95% of the podcasts I've ever been on are linked there for your listening pleasure for free. All of my books aren't on my website yet. I'm kind of working on my website. They only come out at night. Exposing the Dark Weapon of Sleep Paralysis. It's on my homepage. You click it, it's going to take you over to LA's site. If you want to see my other books, you can go on Amazon. All the other ones are on Amazon. On social media, you can get me on most social media platforms at Vicki Joy Author, and that's Instagram, TikTok, X. I'm not on TikTok or X a lot, but you can, if you're only on that platform and you want to reach me, you can get me on those. And I have a Rumble channel, Rumble/user/Vicki Joy, I think it is. And as of today, the only thing on my Rumble channel is a 2-season long series that I'm co-hosting with a friend of mine called Demons and Parasites. And it's going into all of the topics of this alleged autoimmune disease and how supernatural healing is still available to us through prayer, through fasting. And it's a really enlightening series that was birthed out of my being healed of 12 years of debilitating autoimmune disease through fasting. And I was not fasting in hopes to get healed. It was a happy accident, and it really opened my eyes as to the power that we have to heal our own bodies, and that the Old Testament and the Torah that most of evangelical Christianity has decided is outmoded is actually in some ways a medical textbook that is teaching us how to survive without having to go to the Asclepions and the white lab coats for our healing. So that's all on Rumble. And I also have a YouTube channel at Vicki Joy Anderson, all in caps. And that's where you're going to find all of the spiritual warfare and sleep paralysis. And there's not tons on there right now, but that is about to change. If you keep going there periodically, more and more more content is going to be added to that from this point forward. So I think that's everything. But they only come out at night. The book, lamarzulli.net. Go to his store and you can grab the paperback. But hey, if you're not into reading, you can get all of the information that's in that book and more for free by just checking out the podcast that I have posted on my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
we'll
you.
have to do it again before
Absolutely.
you know it.
Anytime.
A few months.
Anytime.
So, yeah, we really appreciate it.
Been fun.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared. Hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe on my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me your way cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they feeling the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? Manifestations of my fears. Regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All the lights are